right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Full Disclosure. This is a interview series where we highlight people and projects that are shaping public finance. My name is Stephen Yoakum. I'm part of our product team here, joined by James today. Really exciting topic. We have Kristin with us. We'll be covering some of the recent changes in ERP and kind of Kristin's day-to-day responsibilities. James, I'll kick it to you.
Thanks, Stephen. Hey, everyone. Very excited for this conversation. Today's a Friday. I woke up extra excited for today and talk to Kristin. So Kristin is the Deputy Finance Director for Concord, North Carolina. She's also someone very special to Stephen and I. She's been working with us for a number of years here at DebtBook. Concord, North Carolina was the 9th organization created in the DebtBook database. And that is likely with about 4 or 5 test organizations. So Concord is one of the earliest DebtBook customers. And Kristin, who you see today, was the 38th user ever created in the platform. So this is a true DebtBook Hall of Famer we have on today. Also, just Steve and I got to know her over the last couple of years, and we're excited to have her on today. So Kristin, I could keep going. Welcome, and thanks for the time today.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Awesome. Let's just start with you and Concord. Tell us a little about your background, how you got to Concord, and then just a little bit about the city. For any of the racing fans out there, they'll kind of know about it, but also you guys are actually a large organization with an airport, so would love to hear about that as well.
Sure. So I actually just hit my 15-year milestone with the city just a couple of weeks ago. I have been in various roles with the city. I started out as an accountant. I have been promoted a few times through the senior accountant role, the finance manager role, where I was the supervisor for the accounts payable team, and then I've been in my most recent role for about 4 years now. And so I have 6 direct reports, accounting operations manager who now has the AP payroll team. I have a couple of grants accountants and a senior accountant and an accounting technician and an accountant that handles our housing department. So that's another unique feature of Concord is we handle public housing, and then we also have the housing choice voucher that covers Cabarrus County. So that's a little bit unique in the sense that usually housing authorities are often a standalone agency, and actually it's a department here within the City of Concord. As you mentioned, yes, we also have a regional airport. Probably see it in the news a lot lately with the newer commercial flights that it's bringing in, expanding some destinations. So it's kind of a unique challenge both with the housing and the airport as departments of the city, because they have their own specialized software that they operate within, and then we have to take and convert that data, the financial data, and get it into our financial system. So that does, kind of pose some challenges, but some opportunities and different unique things that, some others don't get to exist and expand on by having to make sure all those pieces, work together properly day in and day out.
Yeah. So you mentioned all the different, departments you have insight into there, all the direct reports as well. Be interested to hear from you what your week to week looks like. We have listeners and customers around the country that do various roles. So it'd be interesting to hear from your role today, Deputy Finance Director, kind of what that week to week looks like. If that's too flexible or changes a lot, kind of what are the peaks throughout the year?
Sure. So my week to week really isn't that similar week to week. So we're fortunate that we have a pretty large team here, with including our budget team. We've got about 17 individuals now. So with that being said, I have a lot of specialized individuals. And so, I review their work, approve what they do, especially on our grants team. I have to approve drawdowns that they do from federal and state agencies, review the work of my capital asset accountant. And so overall, kind of my responsibilities are a more long-term strategy, where my accounting operation manager focuses more on the day-to-day, the AP, the payroll, the AR. And so I'm actually responsible for investing the city's idle cash. And then I also ensure that debt payments get made timely, and do the accounting for those debt payments. I'm also the audit manager for the city. So we just actually received our approved audit contract back yesterday. And so we are starting those conversations to get our interim fiscal year 26 audit started. And we usually have that in the spring. And then obviously that will get really busy in the summer. And then ultimately culminating in we prepare our own financial statements in-house. So, in about the October timeframe now that the deadline has been pushed back by the LGC, we'll be really heavy at preparing our financial statements in about October. So that's kind of a high level overview just because the week to week isn't that similar for my role.
Yeah. No, it's like, I think everyone would love a job that isn't just come in, do the same 10 things every day until you realize that your job is come in and like fight 10 fires every day and try to figure out what to do. So that's, but super well put. So right now at Concord, and we're going to get into this more with the ERP work, but what are in 26 so far, maybe outside the ERP work we'll get to in a moment, what are some other just exciting things happening around the department or kind of just like big things you all are working on?
Oh, geez. Um, as I mentioned with the airport, right, they're always looking for expanding, right? And so I think just this week they
Mm.
announced two more destinations um for the commercial operations at the terminal there. We have a new airport director starting really soon. Our current airport director is retiring. And so, that always brings changes. And trying to think if there's any big events going on. Nothing's really sticking out to me at the moment. I apologize, but we're kind of head down up here with the ERP.
Yeah,
It's
on the
really
ERP
taken
work.
a lot of our time, but it's something we're very excited about. And I really feel like we're gaining momentum across the city, and there's other people excited about it. I get asked a lot of questions like, "Hey, how's it going?" And when are we going to get to see it? So that's exciting that others are getting excited for it too.
Yeah, that's a great segue for us today. I feel like you mentioned all the different roles you cover and the ERP specifically, which we'll get to here in a minute. But how are you handling technology these days with all those changes coming through? What is the shift you've seen over your time? You mentioned in your 15th year here at Concord. How has that changed for you in those 15 years?
Yeah, so I'll be honest with you, we've just kind of added on um, different technology functions, right? Two big projects that I've been involved in design and implementation is we took our invoices, our AP invoices, and we route them electronically now, but it's outside of our current ERP system. So, that's just another system that people have to use. Another example of that is with our P cards. About 5 years ago, maybe a little bit more now, we actually started leveraging the functionality where we can attach receipts directly to transactions. So we're not passing paper around the office, but therein lies again another username and password you have to remember, right? And so similarly, also with our travel requests and travel statements, um, digitized that a few years ago, and it's great, and it kind of prevents us from any of those getting lost between City Hall and our other locations throughout the city. We'd have that happen, right? Travel
Yeah.
requests would get lost. They were on paper. Um, and so this gave us an opportunity that everything's electronic. We have visibility into it. We know where it's at in every step of the process. But again, that was a separate software outside of our current ERP because we just didn't have
Mm.
that to be able to leverage. And so when I look back, what I see is yes, we've made great improvements. We don't really pass around paper here in our finance department. I love that. All of our team was, you know, we just don't have paper. We don't print a lot of things. We don't have paper,
Yeah.
which has been great. But then over time, you can see the fatigue that kind of sets in where, um, oh, I've got to log into this system, and hang on, I got to log into this system, and that's just it wears on people over time, right? And especially too, it's challenging for upper management who all they have to do is log in to approve, but if it's not a really simple process, it's challenging.
Yeah, disparate systems. I think we'll get into this with the ERP, but even just that book here, as we try to build a platform of applications that can serve the CFOs, deputy finance directors, we want to be able to provide lease and subs over to debt. I think disparate systems would cause confusion over time. I think that's really well put. Awesome. So let's just I kind of want to jump into the ERP stuff now. You good with that, Stephen? Let's do it. All right. So maybe let's just back us up, because I think pre-recording, Kristin, we kind of talked a little bit about how you guys thought about this, but back me up to pre-decision, as you guys were we need a new ERP. Here's why. Let's start to look in this way. Walk us through that process.
Well, as I mentioned, that some of the other systems that we've implemented over the years, a lot of the reason that they're outside of our current ERP is just because the functionality isn't there, correct? And so we were kind of getting to a point that we knew someday soon that our current ERP was going to say, hey, the platform that you are on is not going to be supported at this date. You're going to have to upgrade. And so we've done that a couple of times already. The system that we're in now, we've had since I've been here for those 15 years, right? And so there's been a couple situations where it's all right, you've got to upgrade to the newest version of what we have, because otherwise it's not going to be supported. And at that time, we just didn't have time to dedicate to the time it takes to actually to do a good RFP process to find a new ERP system. So just knowing that we would probably face that again soon, we decided that now was the time that was probably a year ago now, start looking into what do we really want in a new system, and to figure out what's out there, right? What are even our options?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think from your seat, I know that you had a full team analyzing those RFPs, and with you in that process. It's you weren't the only stakeholder, but from your seat, where you stand, what were those important capabilities that you were really looking for? What did you bring to the RFP that you wanted to make sure were covered in that selection process?
Sure. So probably the most important thing is what I've already talked about, is we had too many logins, too much duplicative data, because what's here is also there, and we had to have it that way. And we just wanted an overall easier user experience for people, especially those people outside of the finance and HR teams, right? So maybe those non-everyday users, right? Those people who are technically field workers who, only have to enroll in benefits once a year, only are punching in and punching out, or requesting leave time. What's out there that we can modernize, but also wouldn't be a big ask of those individuals who might not use a computer every day.
Awesome. Yeah. And I guess, to not bury the lead here, you guys ended up selecting a provider and are now going through the implementation. So I guess talk to us about maybe, the provider that you've selected, and then where you guys are at right now in the process. And I think we'll dig into some other things after that.
Sure. So ultimately, we ended up selecting Workday, and we are currently, last week, we started the tenant validation process. So we have our very first test tenant. We could finally see some data that's ours within Workday. And so we are also starting the process of unit testing, which means we test one piece of a process. And the hope is that we test all the individual pieces, and once we put those together into a string and to the full process, that they still work properly. So we're very early on in testing, but we finally have our hands on the system, and that's very exciting to us, to finally be able to see the true functionality that we've heard about now for the past year, and to start making sure that we understand how we can accomplish our same tasks within this new system.
Yeah, that's got to be exciting for you and the team to actually see data and get to start to play with it and validate it. Going back through that RFP process, you mentioned some of the things that you were looking for. Yeah, now going through it and selecting an ERP for the team, what do you think are the things that you would have liked to have known 6, 9, 12 months ago, kind of through this process? What were you blindsided by? What were you surprised by? Be really helpful for the team members here that might be selecting their own RFPs or ERPs to hear.
Sure. So I'm going to be honest, like I haven't really had anything yet that I was like, man, I really wish I would have known that. One thing that's been very helpful to us is a similar size city recently implemented Workday nearby. And
Hmm,
so, we've been able to rely on them and have calls with them and kind of
that's cool.
have some conversations about exactly what you asked, right? Like what went well, what didn't go well, um, especially if there anything that was challenging, right? So that we can kind of put that out there sooner in our process um, to make sure that we're having those conversations on those very important topics and processes early on in this in the whole process to make sure that it's not something that is kind of coming up in the last minute right before we're ready to go live.
Yeah, I guess from what you can share then, maybe surfacing their own feedback, maybe what they were surprised by. Was there anything that they said that was very pertinent or helpful for you and the team, kind of as you were going through that process?
Um, I haven't experienced a situation that they said, like this would be very helpful, but um, there are still some things that, they're kind of trying to figure out if it's the right way still, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. Or, you know, they're still kind of validating things to make sure that it's ready as fiscal year end quickly approaches in another 3 months. Um, so just kind of learning from that, right?
Yeah,
If they
like
had any challenges in that area, or like I'll give you one example. One thing that we're trying to get some information on right now is tax. So, it's very weird, but we're not sales tax exempt. So we collect sales tax, or excuse me, we pay sales tax, and then we have to submit a report, and we get a refund each year, and it's quite a substantial amount of money, so it's worth it. And so like if they do this, that as well, then we want to glean information off of them about how they're setting that up. So because we have to report it by county, which there's 100 counties in North Carolina. So figuring out, hey, how are they getting this data? How did they set up this data to get it or get set up the system so they could get this data to then be able to easily send that report and get that refund. So that's just an example of a way that, one specific thing that, hey, it should also apply to them the way it applies to us. And
Yeah.
how did you set that up? Like, let's
Yeah.
not reinvent the wheel, right?
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah. That's really, I love to hear you guys are collaborating like that. And like, that's kind of why we even like started this interview series because we felt like there was a lot of voices around the country that could share their experience. And I think people around today probably just like, why did Kristin pick a new ERP? How did she do it? Um, I kind of want to talk to you about as you thought about Workday and bringing him on, and then choosing that. How did you think about that interacting with other systems that would stay around, like DebtBook, right? So you're bringing in a new ERP, but you're going to keep other systems around like DebtBook. How do you factor in like that decision, right? And I would almost parlay this too. And you shot me an email a couple weeks ago that was like, "Hey, you're working on ERP integrations? What's the update on that?" And actually, Steven's on that team. He can give a little bit of an update, but talk to me about like DebtBook's not the only system that will remain. How did you and the team thinking about bringing Workday in and it complementing the other systems that you run?
Sure. So we actually, we're eliminating a lot of systems by going
Mm,
to Workday, which is our overall goal, right? But like
yeah.
I mentioned, housing and airport, they're going to still have their own systems. Like housing needs to manage tenants, right? Like there's still finance data in there, but their main goal is to manage tenants. Um, and airport's kind of, similar to that, right? It's like they need to manage the airport, they need to sell their fuel, they need to charge for, hangar leases. And we need that financial data. So we realize that there are going to be some systems like that that are going to continue to exist after we implement Workday. But we also, you know, so we had those conversations. How do we still get that data in, right? And so, um, what we found out in the process is that they were working with y'all to become partners, and so that would hopefully simplify the flow of data between the two systems in the future, which was good news. Um, excuse me. They're also they talk about the ways that they can get the data in, which, we'll still have some imports. Some of the systems that we're going to continue to use, some of them also have direct integrations, right? So, um, you realize that there may be some improvements, but also, you just have to figure out how you're still going to get that data in. And because at the end of the day, I can tell you from, what we went through that no system checked all the boxes. No system could directly integrate to all of our softwares that would still exist. So, um, once you just accept that, then you just realize, okay, like how easy is it going to be, right? Like we recognize there are still some things that maybe aren't going to be quite as automated as we might have wanted them to be, but as long as they're not becoming more complicated, I still feel like that's a win.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for context for those on the call that maybe aren't a current DebtBook customer or leverage some of the things that we do here, really DebtBook specializes in treasury management and related accounting functionality. We spent a lot of time, James and I on the product team, building out that management system over the last few years and gotten to a really good place. And now the next frontier for us is really connecting in ERPs. We want to eliminate the manual work around your fiscal year ends where you have to get data, kind of manually crosswalk it from one system into the other, as Kristin's mentioning. So yeah, to Kristin's point, we partner with Workday. We're working right now on integrating our journal entries into the Workday system. So yeah, that's good news, Kristin. As you look to launch Workday, we'll be ready for you to start pushing in these DebtBook journal entries for you. I guess on timeline there, you mentioned you haven't been surprised by a lot. Can you talk a little bit about where you currently are in the project, what you kind of expect the rest of the year? Give everyone insight into what like an ERP integration or ERP launch looks like.
Sure. So this really, it was probably overall, it's probably going to be about a 14-month project. So we really kind of got started in November of 2025, full on, like we're in ERP
Yeah.
implementation mode, right? So our tentative go live date is January 1st, 2027. And so as I mentioned, right now we're doing what's called unit testing, which is testing the individual pieces. And so that's going to last for about 6 weeks for us. And then we'll do some confirmation of some data. We'll do some data imports of more of it from our current system into the tenant, and the Workday team, our implementation team will actually be building that next test tenant. And so we're scheduled to start the end-to-end testing, which is like putting all of the individual pieces together and testing an entire process. Say, for instance, from contract to PO to invoice to the settlement run, which is the payment run, connecting that whole string together. And so that's going to start right after the 4th of July. And that will take us like through September-ish, and then we'll have some more confirmation to do and um, kind of start really preparing for that go live in December, and hopefully to kick that off there in January of 2027. So
Wow.
it seems like a
Yeah.
lot of time, but
It-
these first 5 months have went by extremely fast. And we're like, oh, wow, we're only, 9 months out from our actual go live date. And we have so much to test and so much to validate and make sure that it's ready to go. So um, it seems like a long time, but that's what I will say is it's really not. It goes by so fast. And
yeah.
I that's probably one thing that I could, say for others that might be starting this journey is hold on tight, because it moves so fast because you've got to keep doing your regular work too. So and as I mentioned, end-to-end testing, which is going to be the more rigorous testing, that's going to align directly with fiscal year end and all of our audit prep and preparing our financial statements. So um, it may look cool, calm, and collected right now, but it might be a different face if we were to talk in September. So
Yeah. No, it's like you walked through that and we're sitting here in March and I'm like, she got to September really fast and that like it's gonna fly by. What about like this is consuming a lot of your time, your team's time throughout this year as you guys do your regular jobs. How are you all balancing, you know, other things that pop up through the year and like having to determine, man, do we attack these things now or do we kind of maybe defer them? Because I mean, things are gonna small projects are gonna pop up, improvements you think about. Are you having to be really diligent around those things just because you're spinning so many plates?
Yeah, that's exactly what we discussed in our recent staff meeting. Is the good thing is Jessica Jones, our finance director. There's been a lot of conversation about the ERP for over a year now, right? And so every chance that she gets in department head meetings or similar situations, she reminds everybody like, hey, this is where we're at. Our team is getting really busy. And so that means that some of our regular tasks might not get done as quickly as they have been. Um, there are some things internally that we do that, you know, do we do it monthly? Yes. But at this point in the game, is it necessary to maybe do it every month? We might be able to defer it, like, some of our reconciliations, not our bank reconciliations, but right now we have to do a reconciliation in our project funds, our multi-year funds, just to make sure that our system is handling them properly.
Mhm.
Those are types of things that if we skipped one month, it wouldn't hurt because when we do it the following month, if there was a problem we missed because we didn't do it for one month, we'd catch it on the next month. So yeah, we're
Right.
really having to be diligent about, you know, prioritizing. We need to prioritize the ERP implementation. It's very important. We have a very short time period. Um, but the biggest thing that we've communicated to our team is they have to communicate, right? So if there's other
Mm,
departments that are waiting on them, maybe they provide monthly reports, is they need to get ahead of that and say, hey, FYI, it might be a week later than normal. Um, you might have to respond to an email and say, hey, yeah, I can get to it, but it's not going to be next week. But the biggest thing is like communicating with people, right? Is
yeah.
give them an idea of when you can get it to them. If you're in the middle of some testing and it's, challenging and you're really having to think through it, and your phone's ringing and your team's just going off and your emails happening, like making sure that our team knows that they have our support, that it's okay to take time to finish what you're doing and return calls, when you have that availability, right? Like it's
Yeah.
okay to have a 24-hour response period, because if we don't, we're going to burn out our staff and we
Totally.
won't be able to meet our deadlines. So we've been very clear to them, like, we don't want to burn you out. You have our support, and let us know as managers if you're experiencing a situation where someone's being unkind because they're not being realistic about their expectations of what we're getting to them and how quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. That's great to hear. Um,
Yeah, I feel
awesome.
like there were some great nuggets in there. I was looking over my notes as James asked his last question. You have kind of, as you're selecting it in ERP, think about the systems that you can kind of decommission, how the systems you're going to keep integrate into that ERP. And then you talked about collaboration with, cities, counties around you, and then also collaborating internally to make sure that the team is well supported and can do all these different projects that pop up throughout the year. So I think it's all great advice. Is there any other kind of advice that you would give to anyone listening today on the RFP process? I know you mentioned a few extras to us, but before the call.
Sure. So we actually contracted with GFOA's consulting team to assist us with the ERP process. Um, it was fantastic. They do this on a regular basis, so they know the important things to put in the RFPs. The very specific topics. What data we should be gathering from which teams to get in our requirements. And it was a great experience with that because you don't do RFPs every day for an ERP. And as I mentioned, I've been here 15 years and this is the first time we're changing systems, right? So neither Jessica nor I had been through that. We'd been through upgrades, but we hadn't been through selecting a new ERP, right? So having that experience with the GFOA consulting team was excellent. And the other thing about that is they really helped us keep that process fair,
Mm.
and helped us, here we're gonna write these scripts for the demos when these
Oh, cool.
software teams come on site, and it's the same script for everybody. Everybody has the same, requirements that they need to talk about. And that really helped us compare apples to apples. But even if you
Mm.
aren't in the market or aren't in a financial position that you can bring in a consultant, they do have resources out there. They're often having webinars about evaluating ERP systems. So those are very affordable. So checking those out, they're often having uh, what do I want to say, you know, trainings on that as part of like the National GFOA conference or some of their other in-person trainings or online trainings. But yeah, also reach out to your peers. You know, when we started this process and the respondents that we had for the RFP, of course, they're going to list other governments or other companies they worked with. And sometimes you realize that there's someone kind of right down the road that already has this software that you may not know about. And so definitely, reach out to your peers. But we've got a great listserv here in North Carolina for North Carolina government finance officers. There's questions going out there every day. Put out there, hey, has anyone been through this recently? And that would be a great resource as well. And then once you actually find those resources, you can start connecting with them and learning what they like, what they don't like, about different software. So that would be my recommendation, is definitely utilize the resources that are already available. So there are quite a few out there.
That's awesome. Yeah. Again, that's like a huge reason we started this conversation series as well. So I think kind of as we land the plane here at the end, I kind of wanted to bring it back to DebtBook for a second. So I hit this off the top, but I'm going to emphasize this again and pull up my backend system. So for everyone listening or who will listen to this, Kristin is user 38 in the DebtBook system. The first time she logged into the app was March 2nd of 2020. So Kristin, we should have had a cake delivered. This is your 6-year DebtBook anniversary. You've, and you last logged in on 3/5/2026. So look at that, 6 years apart, and you've logged in 416 times into the application. I mean, those are some numbers that we just absolutely love to see. Can you just, I think it for any current DebtBook customer on the call, or maybe a prospect who listened to this, 6 years using the system, you've seen a lot of change. Can you just hit on that over time? And I'll kind of as we kind of wrap up our time here.
Sure. So I know you probably got your stats a day or so ago, but I did log in today, so I just want to make sure you're aware of that.
Okay.
I had to check on a lease because we're working on customer accounts billing in Workday, and so I wanted to look at one specific lease. They send a check over to our planning department every month, so I had to remember what their name was. So I do log in fairly frequently. So when we started, we obviously just had the debt module, I should say. Leases and subscriptions, those lovely things that they were still kind of a gleam in Gatsby's eye at that point. And so we hadn't fully dug into that. So we started with the debt. We use it for tracking all of our debt, and most importantly for getting the accounting entries for payments, and then the year-end entries out of that. So started with that, and then leases came along, and DebtBook presented like, hey, we have a solution for you to help with your leases and get the accounting together for your leases. So I was actually the lead on that Gatsby implementation. Then subscriptions came along, and I was on the lead on that as well. And so, it's changed a lot over the years. I'm thankful for our long-term relationship with DebtBook because, when we got to kind of the last minute in that implementation year, we had I found some accounting things that really didn't tie out, and so I had to kind of ring the bell more than and I'll be honest with you, I was reaching out to support, and I didn't feel like I was kind of wrapping up the issue, and so kind of rang the bell and said, "Hey, we need some assistance here," and y'all were great about working with us to kind of iron out some of those little wrinkles that we had there in the implementation year, which really helped us. And then we rolled forward into subscriptions, and so things were good as far as we learned a lot from leases, and we were able to translate that into subscriptions. And so I'm officially like transitioning that off to our capital asset accountant now, but I still go into debt book. Like I mentioned earlier, I record the entries for the debt payments, and then I'm the audit manager, and so I do a lot of the year-end accounting entries, so I grab that out of there as well for the debt side. But I do have my capital asset accountant who's in a little bit more frequently on the lease and subscription side. So yes, we are still actively using DebtBook, and we're excited to transition what we get out of there over onto our Workday system and see the improvements there as well. I think it will give us a lot more opportunities with the GL redesign that we're doing within a Workday.
Yeah, I will say for those listening, the relationship we have with Kristin over the years has been invaluable to James and I. The products we build are supposed to be purpose built for the public sector, and as we build a first product, a kind of minimum viable product to get things in hands first year, Kristin was there along the way to give feedback. And a lot of the improvements you see directly in the application month after month, quarter after quarter are from her team or her specifically. So I want to thank you, Kristin, for that partnership. It's been valuable. I think everyone around the country has benefited from this relationship and how much feedback you gave us early days and gave us that room to improve. So thank you very much for that. I guess on the call today, James, anything remaining here before we wrap up?
No, this has been great. And it's a Friday afternoon, so we don't want to keep people too long here.
All right, great. Well, thank you, Kristin, for the time today. Hope you all the best in integrating with DebtBook in your ERP coming up in the coming months, but also all the ERP projects you have throughout the rest of the year. We hope that September goes smoother for you than you're expecting, but we'll see, and we'll be along the way to help if we need to.
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate the relationship that we have, and I appreciate you reaching out to me and wanting to hear our story here for what we're doing with our ERP here in Concord.
Yeah, great.
It's been great. And I hope you can get a vacation in this year too. So hopefully we get a break along the way, and then you can keep employing that ERP.
I hope so too. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Thanks,
Thank
Kristin.
you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good afternoon.